All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're unpacking a massive cybersecurity failure, one that put the personal data of pretty much every child in Uruguay at risk. This is the story of the GURI platform breach, and it is a wild one.
So just imagine this for a second. The sensitive data of an entire generation of children, poof, gone. Suddenly in the hands of cybercriminals. And what do you get from the officials in charge? A wall of silence. This is exactly what went down in Uruguay, and it kicked off a national crisis. Let's get into the details. Now, to really get a grip on the scale of this disaster, you first have to understand what this GURI system even is. We're not just talking about some random administrative software going down. No, this was the entire backbone of the country's primary education system.
Yeah, GURI is so much more than a simple database. You gotta think of it as the central nervous system for all of Uruguay's primary schools. I mean, sure, it tracks attendance and grades, but it's also the main tool the government uses to roll out crucial social policies, to make sure no kid falls through the cracks. So when GURI went dark, the state was basically flying blind.
And this is where the story gets, well, really messy. Because from the moment this all started, two completely different narratives popped up. You had the carefully managed official story coming from the government, and then you had the alarming truth that was coming out from hackers and the media.
So it all starts on October 3rd. The national education body, ANEP, announces a cybersecurity incident and just takes the whole system offline. For 24,000 teachers, this meant an immediate trip back in time to pen and paper. For days, the system just stayed down. Then, by October 8th, the app that parents use came back online, but the teachers, the people who actually use the system every day, were still locked out. And that right there was a huge red flag that the damage was way more severe than anyone was letting on.
And right here, the disconnect becomes crystal clear. ANEP, the government, called it a cybersecurity incident, but external groups, they called it what it was, a hackeo, a hack. And while ANEP said nothing at all about data loss, the hackers claimed they'd walked away with 15 gigabytes of data. That's almost 3 million records. So the government story was about a technical glitch. The ground truth was about a catastrophic data heist.
But this wasn't really about system uptime. The real prize for the hackers, the absolute jackpot, was the data itself. So let's take a closer look at what was truly at stake here.
3 million. Let that number sink in for a second. That's the alleged number of personal records that were compromised. And that figure includes students, many of them young kids, along with all their teachers and the school staff. It's an entire generation's digital identity, stolen in one fell swoop.
And just look at the kind of data we're talking about. National ID numbers, addresses, grades, attendance records, all the usual stuff. But the crucial piece, the absolute goldmine for criminals, is that last item, familial links. The database didn't just have individual files, it literally mapped out entire family networks.
And this is why that's so incredibly dangerous. As one analysis put it, this data is a catastrophic trove for criminals. What does that actually mean? It means with this information, a hacker doesn't just have a child's ID number. They've got their parents' names, their contact info. They can create perfectly believable scams, fake emails about school fees, urgent texts, and completely exploit the trust between a parent and their child's school.
So you might be wondering, was this just a case of really, really bad luck for the education ministry? Not even close. When you zoom out, you see that the GURI attack was just one piece of a much larger, coordinated assault on Uruguay's public sector.
At the very same time this was happening, Uruguay's state mortgage bank, BHU, was getting absolutely crippled by a massive ransomware attack. The attackers there stole over 700 gigabytes of sensitive financial data. This was no coincidence, this was a campaign. And the attacks, they shared the same DNA. Both of them targeted huge stockpiles of citizen data. In both cases, officials tried to downplay how bad it was, calling them just incidents. And here's the most important part. Both breaches probably succeeded by exploiting the weakest link in any security chain, compromised user credentials. That just means someone's password got stolen, probably by tricking them with a fake email. It points to a systemic failure in basic cyber hygiene right across the government.
So, this all brings us to the real heart of the issue, doesn't it? The GURI incident wasn't just a technical failure. It was a profound failure of governance and a massive breach of public trust. So what's the path forward?
Well, experts have laid out a really clear three-step plan. First, mandatory disclosure. The government has to come clean, confirm the breach, and tell every single affected family what happened. No more silence. Second, enforce the basics. Mandate multi-factor authentication everywhere. It's the single best defense against password theft. And third, redesign the system. You have to isolate sensitive data like family records from the day-to-day platform to limit the damage if or when another attack happens.
This entire crisis really leaves us with one fundamental question. In our digital age, the state holds our most sensitive information. After a failure on this scale, the challenge isn't just about fixing servers or patching software. It's about rebuilding the trust that was so catastrophically broken.